Are you curious on what the differences are between a high flow and a standard flow skid steer? Well, today I'm going to go over the basics with you. Guys, Zach here from Kubota of Lynchburg, and today I wanted to go over the basic differences with you on the difference between a high flow and a standard flow, or also called low flow, skid steer. So I've got a new Kubota SVL 97-3. Now this is a high flow machine, but I'm going to talk about the little bit of differences between those two and why you might want one versus the other and what you need to be using the high flow versus standard flow for. So normally if you're going to have a high flow machine, you're going to have four total ports on the front of it, these hydraulic quick couplers. Now a standard flow machine will usually only have two because a standard flow you've got in and out on standard. On this one you're going to have a standard flow as well as a high flow in and out of the fluid, so as it's looping back and around. These other two pieces up here, they're going to be on most skid steers. You've got a case drain, so if you're running an implement that ends up getting very hot or building up a lot of pressure, it can drain the fluid back into the system through here. It's kind of like a pressure relief valve. And then this is actually a 14-pin connector, I don't know if I can take it off, for running your electronics on the skid steer. So on a Kubota, real quick on the electronics, on a Kubota, if you get the high flow machine like this one with four ports, it comes standard with this 14-pin connector. That's standard. On a standard flow machine, that's not from the factory installed, so you'd have to add that on. Speaking of factory installed, if you ever are going to get a machine or an implement that's going to require high flow, you should definitely buy a high flow machine right off the get-go. There's no option, as far as I'm aware for any brands, of converting your skid steer machine into a high flow from a standard flow. So buy it from the factory if you think you might ever. So these attachments that require high flow are going to be, let me talk a little bit about high flow first. The way I'm going to describe it is it's like the hydraulic horsepower of a machine. So on a tractor, you might have a 100 horsepower engine or a 25 horsepower engine. On a skid steer, you're going to have a 40 GPM, gallon per minute flow, or like a 25 gallon per minute flow. So the lower the flow, the less the power on it. So that's how they rate these hydraulic flows. We can rate it to like a truck or a sports car. If you have a lot of heavy work to be hauling a truck with, you know, you're hauling around a 15,000 pound load with you, you're going to need a lot of horsepower. If you have a small truck that all you're doing is running a lawnmower around, well, great. You don't need as much horsepower. You don't need as big of a truck, so you don't need to spend the extra money on getting that higher horsepower, and in this case, a higher flow. The three main implements that you're going to use a high flow machine for are going to be a mulching head for grinding down and cutting up trees, and a asphalt miller, so grinding up the asphalt and resurfacing asphalt, or a trencher. So trenching out to ditch lines, trenching out lines for electric and water and everything like that. The reason these require that higher flow, that higher gallon per minute, is you need more power going to those implements because it's chewing and grinding and it's taking a lot of work to go through. So if you're ever going to get a mulching head down the road, you're ever going to get a trencher down the road, you should go high flow. That's not saying that companies don't make implements that are designed for standard flow machines. You can get a standard flow mulching head, a standard flow trencher. It's just going to work slower with less power. It's going to get it done, but usually not as efficiently. So that's why we go with those high flow model options. If you're using buckets, pallet forks, moving material around, grapples, there is no difference on capacity on a high flow versus a standard flow machine. So if you get a Kubota or a Cat or a Takeuchi with the same model, one's high flow, one's standard flow, your lift, your maneuvering ability is exactly the same. So you can save some money, save some parts basically, if you go with a standard flow. So if that's all you're doing and you never have plans for an implement that might require a lot of horsepower or a lot of power to do the work, stick with a standard flow. So again, high flow, high powered requirement jobs, mulching heads, asphalt millers, trenchers, standard flow for your material moving jobs. So once you have your machine, if you have a high flow machine, how do you switch between high flow and standard flow, and which one should you be on? It's very important that you know what gallon per minute requirements your implement has. If your implement, let's say an auger, can only take up to 25 gallon per minute, but you have a high flow machine, run that machine in standard flow, because if you put 40 gallons per minute to it like this skid steer, you can blow out that motor. So match your implement to your flow. Most machines, when you start them up, are going to be in the standard or low flow option. It's safer for you and safer for the implements because you're not going to mess up a motor accidentally. You usually do have to push some buttons. Sometimes they're up on the dash, sometimes they're on the screen, double click buttons to turn on high flow as a safety requirement. So if you need the high flow, or let's say you buy a high flow machine and you feel like you're not getting the power out of it, it might be because you haven't turned on the high flow, you're running the standard flow, or you're running them out of the wrong line of couplers. So keep that in mind as well. Match your implement to your flow rating of your machine.